Good morning, Coalition of Concerned Republicans. Mike Levine here. Great to be with you today. We have a big workload in front of us today at Restoring Our American Republic with my good friend and colleague, Chuck Benoit, waiting to come on board and enlighten us with his empirical wisdom. I'm sure Chuck is going to rock your world today. On Tuesday, we started talking about natural law versus legalism. And that conversation has been very enlightening for me over the last week or so. I know Chuck has a lot to say about that. And we began working through our ballot last week, starting at the top with the United States Senate. And then we got into the two congressional races that impact Lake County, which would be Congressional District 11 and Congressional District 6. We worked through all that. Today, we're going to start off with the governor's race. And I want you to keep in mind the difference between natural law and legalism. And I'm suggesting to you, because I've been told directly from several of our elected officials that they firmly believe that if it's not illegal, it is a viable mechanism for strategy and tactics. So remember, when you raise your children based on the concept of legalism, then anything that's not written in the rule book goes. That's what our elected officials are governing the state of Florida on and Lake County today. We have a legalistic system that ignores the morality of natural law, while our founding fathers told us that the Constitution of the United States is wholly inadequate to govern over anything except a religious and moral population. Yet, our elected officials are telling us that they disagree. So let me bring Chuck Benoit on board. Chuck, and if you'll give me a couple of comments on my open there, if you have anything to say about that, I'm dying to hear it.
Okay, well, I think right now, when we talk about this kind of thing, the biggest place we're seeing this is in these negative ads, where these political PACs are just saying horrid things about people that they can, if you really peel back the onion, you find out that there really isn't anything there, the idea that you can besmirch someone, that you could say evil things about them, and it's not illegal, so it's okay to do it. And so, yeah, we have to sit back and think to ourselves, are we really that vain, and thin-skinned, that we hear one negative thing about someone, and we throw the whole thing out? We throw the guy out. I've heard some very, very negative things said about people who it's not like I think they're the most honest person in the world, but I know that they're not that evil. Yet I'm getting information in my mailbox painting these people as utterly atrocious, evil people. How can you do that? How can you besmirch someone? And the answer is, well, it's not illegal.
Well, Chuck, I would suggest that it goes a little deeper than that because elected office comes with a lot of influence. So when people get elected to elected office, public office, then I'm going to use the word collude with other elected officials to self-enrich. And that stuff, that's kind of the whole backroom, smoky room story that we all have talked about forever, right? That what goes on in the back room and the smoky filled back room, right? And so the idea that because you see it, right? For example, Michael Waltz, for example, right? He was a congressman from District 6, where I live now. And Michael Waltz ran a military defense company and had major contracts with the federal government. Now, I don't know all the details associated with that, but when he got elected to, well, actually, when he was a congressman, I believe those contracts continued. But I believe that when he went to work for the White House as the national security advisor, I think those companies were sold off or something. But still, it was over $10 million in revenue. And then you look at Corey Mills, too. Corey Mills does the same thing, and a lot of them do. So they're in elected office, they hold elected office, they influence the votes on these budgets and stuff, and they self-enrich. And then I have local examples that if anybody in the audience is interested, then put a comment in the chat and we'll talk about it. And you can call me, we can talk about it individually. But there's local examples of the same thing. So people leverage the government for their own self-enrichment. And I'm told directly by local politicians that if it's not illegal, then that's absolutely fine. And in fact, it's smart. So that makes me uncomfortable, Chuck. So that being said, if you're ready, I'm ready to get into
Okay.
this ballot.
All right. Well, we're going to start off, I guess, with the governor's race. We have plenty of Republican primary candidates from which to choose.
Yeah, that we do.
And so we can start at the top. I know there's some of them that we really don't know much of anything about, and we won't get too much into that. But Jay Collins is someone we should know, and he's at the top there in alphabetical order. What say you about Jay Collins?
Uh, you know, I'm not a, I like, as I told you off camera, Chuck, I met Jay Collins several times, and, he seems to be a pretty good guy. Obviously, he sacrificed a lot with his military service, but, as I'm not a fan, I don't believe that military service qualifies someone to be a governor. And so that's not the only thing I'm looking for. And then when I hear Jay Collins saying that you don't have the right to say things that hurt other people, it just tells me that he doesn't really understand the Constitution of the United States. And that's a real problem for me. And then I have more personal feelings about that I'm not really willing to share on camera right now. But I would say to you that I won't be voting for Jay Collins. And, I'm not saying he's a horrible guy, but I think that Jay Collins is in the government business for the wrong reasons, Chuck.
Well, there you go. Well, I don't really have the the information that you know about Jay Collins. All I can do is I've heard him. I've heard him talk, and I'm not. I don't know. But he's not ringing my bell. So let's move along to Byron Donald, another gentleman who does not ring my bell.
That's interesting, right? I'll tell you, this is another example, right? I mean, where would Byron Donalds be without Donald Trump's endorsement? Where would Ron DeSantis have been without Donald Trump's endorsement? So it's interesting, right? When you get into, and I'd love to, this is where we're going to thread in our conversation between natural law and legalism, because Byron Donalds is all about legalism, okay? I mean, you can just look at his backstory. And, Byron Donalds is not, again, I just want to tell people our Constitution is based on the fact that our rights come from God and that the Constitution is wholly inadequate to govern over anything than a religious and moral population. And I don't see that in Byron Donalds, Chuck.
Yeah, well, another thing about Byron that probably writes him off your list is that he does not believe the 20 election was stolen. All right.
That's a problem. Yeah, that's a
So
litmus
right off
test,
the
as
bat.
I tell you. That's a litmus test. Go ahead, Chuck.
Well, I'm just basically pointing to your own words that that is a litmus test for you and would be very,
Yep,
very telling, I guess.
exactly.
Um,
Yep.
you know, I, A lot of this has to do with feel, I think, and I guess the problem is that people don't really know anybody, so what they end up feeling is what happens at the end of their mailbox things. The stuff you get in the mailbox, and so much of it is so negative that they just get a bad feeling because of the negativity. But as I look at Byron Donald, I'm just not seeing and I'm not talking about my mailbox, but I'm just not seeing what I want in a governor.
Well, I want to add here, Chuck, that for the audience, that I have never seen, because this is a reality of the whole thing. When you see all these elected officials endorsing people who you don't understand why a certain elected official would endorse a candidate, I'm going to give you the answer to the question right now. The answer is money. So you can take our guy, Taylor Yarkowski, running for, House seat 25. He's the incumbent. And the reason people support him, even though they know a lot of really bad things about Taylor Yarkowski, is he's able to raise money. He brings money. So if you bring money to the party, then you get the endorsement. And that's it. That's the litmus test. If you bring money, you get endorsed, period. And you and I had this conversation directly with Bill Helmick at the October RPUF quarterly meeting while we were standing at the bar, and he was ripping my butt up because his donors bought the beer I was drinking at the bar, if you recall.
Yeah, I do
Right?
recall that. That was just before
My
they
point
threw
is, it's
you
all about
out.
the money, Chuck. It's all about the money. Ladies and gentlemen, 100% about the money. Character, ability to govern, background, knowledge, morals, ethics has nothing to do with it, Chuck.
Yeah, and basically anybody can vote the way they're told.
And they will vote the way they're told, and they will fundraise.
Okay, let's keep moving right along because we do have a lot going on here. James Fishback.
Yeah, James Fishback, it's amazing. Again, David Ramba, the head of Ramba Consulting, bought some property in Madison, Florida, where Bill Helmick, who his wife claims a homestead tax exemption in Tallahassee, but Helmick says that he lives at a property that David Ramba owns in Madison County, and that's on his voter registration card and his driver's license, which is all a ruse. And of course, Helmick is the state committee man from Madison County, even though his wife sleeps in Tallahassee, Florida, where they have a homestead tax exemption. So when Fishback first filed his campaign, I pulled up his campaign documents, and his campaign documents show that he's headquartered in Madison, Florida. So I asked him, I said, Fishback, why do you own, and he owns a residential property and a property that is zoned residential business. So he has a house and an office. He's from Fort Lauderdale. He's 30 years old, approximately 30, whatever his age is, right? But he's a young man from Fort Lauderdale buying two properties in Madison, Florida, where David Ramba owns properties, and other politicians are buying property in Madison, Florida. So when I ask him about it, he takes me off of his callback list. So that is sleazy, and I won't be voting for James Fishback.
Okay, I haven't heard much about this Jim Holcomb. Do we want to even bring him up? Skip Jim Holcomb. What about Arthur Joseph McCaffrey? Haven't heard anything.
McCaffrey is an interesting guy. This guy, I really, it's perplexing why he's even in the race, but he has a criminal background, and which is whatever. I'm not judging the guy, okay, but I mean, he certainly has he doesn't have the intellectual tools to be the governor, and I'm amazed. I'd love to hear his story one time about why he's actually running. So move on.
There you go. Daniel Nokovich, who's
Skip.
he? Yeah. Okay, so that brings us to Paul Renner, who I think we may have something to talk about. You and I chatted with him at a quarterly.
A few times.
Yeah,
you and I confronted him together.
Yeah.
We talked about it together at that same October quarterly, just prior to getting my ass chewed by Bill Helmick. I might get that opportunity again tonight at the Republican Executive Committee Lincoln Reagan Day in the middle of August. which should be held in February. But so yeah, Paul Renner, obviously, Paul Renner has a great he has certainly the credentials to be the governor. He was a Speaker of the House, 20 years in the Navy, lawyer, prosecutor, all of that kind of stuff. So he brings all that. Obviously, Paul Renner was the Speaker of the House when the Live Local Act was passed into law. I've talked to him about that on several occasions. And while I am highly offended by that, um, I think that Paul Renner is probably going to be my guy. I think that with the comments that Governor DeSantis has made about Paul Renner would be a good governor, according to Ron DeSantis. I think that's going to give Paul Renner the opportunity to defeat at least the best shot of any of the other candidates, defeating Byron Donalds. And therefore, I believe I'm going to vote for Paul Renner. Chuck?
There you go. Well, I guess, when I'm thinking about, what can we call success here in the governor's race, about the best thing that I could say that would be successful is that Byron Donalds get not necessarily 50% of the vote. So I know the vote's going to be all over the place for a lot of people. Paul Renner's someone you like. Others have said Jay Collins. Others have said Fishback. I've been really impressed with Bobby Williams. But when you say you feel Paul Renner's the most likely to have a chance, well, I guess that kind of does put some pressure on me. I'm still haven't made my decision, but I get it. We just don't have hardly a chance to stop these self-appointed or proclaimed winners of our races here.
The question really becomes, Chuck, how opposed to Byron Donalds are you? I mean, Byron Donalds is the, what do they call it, Chuck? The predetermined winner,
Yeah,
right? I mean, the odds are
he's the
if
selected.
polling is anywhere near correct, right? I mean, I saw polls on X saying he has 98% chance of winning, right? So it could be that Byron Donalds is unstoppable. So the question becomes, and again, keep in mind, that's another thing, Jay Collins is open to data centers. Byron Donalds is open to data centers. So, that's a big deal right now. And of course, Donald Trump wants data centers because Donald Trump's going to make a lot of money off of these data centers. I'm telling you, this TAE company with these nuclear fusion reactors is going to power these data centers, and Donald Trump wants them, in my opinion. That's just my analysis of the situation. So, but anyway, we can keep moving.
Yeah, let's keep moving. The next three are Rachel Rodriguez, James Shaw, and Knest Suki, I guess. Don't know
All
much
three of
about
those.
them. Just
James Shaw ran for the Secretary of Agriculture. I've had a couple of people that I really respect tell me that they are supporting Shaw, but again, Shaw has just no chance of winning.
right. And again, as I mentioned, I've been really interested in Bobby Williams, but you've got me
Bobby
thinking
Williams is
things out.
if it wasn't for Renner, I would probably be voting for Bobby Williams just to put my assets in that basket. I met Bobby Williams a time or two. I like Bobby Williams. He's fine. But I think that Paul Renner is more qualified to be the governor. I think Paul Renner has learned from his experience and also on the campaign trail. He's gotten an earful from a lot of grassroots people, and I think that he respects what the grassroots people are saying. When I told Bobby Williams in a public, not Bobby Williams, Paul Renner in a public meeting that we should ban subsidizing housing purchase, he agreed with me from the podium publicly that the state of Florida should ban subsidizing housing purchases, which is directly to the Live Local Act, which in fact subsidizes housing purchases to the tune of $100 million a year, ladies and gentlemen.
There we go. Now, moving along to the CFOs, Chief Financial Officer, we have Frank William Coolidge. I think that'd be college,
Yep.
maybe.
College.
And Blaise Ngolia.
Yeah.
What say you?
Blaise is going to win the race. I mean, it's highly unlikely that college will win. But, again, you go to legalism versus natural law. And just to put a marker in the ground, I'm going to vote for college, Chuck.
Okay. Well, we've got several more, and let's just keep moving along.
Let's go.
Commissioner of Agriculture, Wilt Simpson, who's been around for a while, and everyone knows who he is, and Matt Taylor. And I would just quickly note that at one of these meet and greets that were put on by the Republican women up in Leesburg, the one candidate that got the greatest applause throughout the entire night just happened to be Matt the Taylor, the welder. Matt the welder Taylor.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Well, just keep in mind that the people come to these little hobnobs and stuff, and they bring their people. So the people that bring the most people will get the most votes and the most applause. So the hobnob is not really a great indicator of public support. But I agree, and I'm not a, I'm again, this, I just want to say, Chuck, that this ballot is a really difficult ballot to vote. I think this is probably the most difficult ballot I've ever voted because I'm so, there's just a lot going on that I'm not happy about, and I want to put a stop to it. So you can't continue to elect the same people you've always elected and get different results. I mean, that's just not going to happen. So for me personally, today I'm not going to support somebody just because they have, just because they're an incumbent or something like that. I'm going to err on the side of the underdog. So
There you
I'm
go.
going to vote for Matt Taylor myself.
Okay, well, I think Matt's got my vote as well. We're not making a lot of people in the Republican Party of Florida happy, but
You know what?
it's got to start somewhere. We've got
Got to start
to
somewhere.
start expecting the party to listen to us and to pay attention to us, not just shove people down our throat. So let's go ahead and move to District 25, Tom Vale and Taylor Yarkowski. Taylor's the incumbent. Just for anyone who may not know, when that was an open seat, Tom Vale did run against Taylor, spent about, I don't know, $11,000 against Taylor's $200,000 and lost by about 400 votes. I'm just throwing
There were
some
four candidates in the primary. So
Yeah.
don't forget that those
Okay.
votes were divvied up between four different candidates. So the question in this election, when it's one-on-one, how will those votes that were cast for the other two candidates, Mount Silbernagel, and I can't remember the girl's name right now, but those votes will go one way or the other, and we'll see how that goes because it's one-on-one this trip, which gives Tom either Tom will do better or he'll do worse. If he does better, he wins. If he does worse, then that means that those people who voted in the 2022 election went to Taylor instead of Tom. But we know Taylor. Taylor's our REC chairman. We know that's been a debacle. There's been a lot of negative press, negative stuff against Taylor on social media, which has been pretty substantiated. So it's not a question of whether it's true or not. I don't believe. I think it's just a question of, and then of course, Taylor is just the ultimate establishment candidate who does whatever he has to do to advance his own political career. And of course, he's a reliable vote for leadership. So that's what you got, ladies and gentlemen. To be honest with you, if you're going to vote for Taylor Yarkowski, it doesn't matter who gets the seat because Taylor's going to do whatever leadership wants anyway, and there will be no debate about it, Chuck.
There you go.
I lost your audio, Chuck. Your audio is gone.
Sorry about that. I
You're back.
had lawnmower in the back of me and just shut it down for a minute. Sorry. Yeah, a lot of the negative things I'm getting in my mailbox about Tom Vale are just absolutely out of the box. I mean, Taylor's $200,000+ is just throwing a lot of dirt in the air, and that again goes back to, well, it's not illegal, but is it immoral? I don't know.
Natural law versus legalism, Chuck.
There you go.
That's where we're at.
There you go. So again, people out there, you're going to get exactly what you vote for. So pay close attention. Let's go to Board of County Commissioners. There's two races. Sean Parks is the incumbent, and Humberto Liriano is opposing him. What say you, Mike?
I have a lot of feelings about this. You know, at the end of his term, Sean Parks will have served 16 years. He's asking for another term, which will take him out to 20 years. Sean is a very knowledgeable guy. Obviously, you can't you can't serve in the legislature or in public office and for that long and not be knowledgeable. And, you know, Sean has, personal credentials that qualify him for the job. But I would like for Sean to term limit himself out. I would like for him to do the respectful thing that Josh Blake did and term limit himself out. Because if he did, we'd have a lot more qualified candidates to choose from. And because he continues running, then people don't run against him because it's expensive to defeat him. And he's got special interest already behind him financially. So that's a tough fight for a challenger to unseat an incumbent like Sean Parks. Umberto is a doctor. And in Lake County, the medical community is huge. And, that is government subsidized industry. So personally, I'm not interested in having a doctor necessarily replace Sean Parks, who, we have a lot of problems with Sean Parks, but he does a lot of things right also. So for the sake of the county, Chuck, I hate to say this out loud, but I guess I'm gonna have to vote for Sean Parks because at least I know Sean Parks. Sean Parks, while he is an establishment candidate for sure, I mean, you can look at Wellness Way. That's all about Sean Parks. He brought that to the table a long, long time ago. And I think that it's just too risky to bring somebody else in who you don't really know, especially somebody part of the medical community, which is a huge government-supported industry that is a major economic influence in every jurisdiction, but particularly in Lake County, where we seem to solicit retirees because of the medical expenses that they have and the Social Security and pensions that they bring. And I'm not for that. I'd like to see Lake County go more in the direction of a private sector economy than an economy that is subsidized by government. And there's no good answer. This is what I'm saying. This is a very difficult ballot to vote. But I'm saying to you that I'm going to vote for Sean Parks because I think he's the best choice of the choices we have available to us. And I'm going to highly encourage Sean Parks to not run again in 2030 so that we can find a good replacement for Sean going forward. And Sean can move off and do something else, whether it's in government or in the private sector, Chuck.
As our time is beginning to get very, very thin, I would imagine you may have the same situation with Leslie Campion and David Williams.
Williamson, right?
Williamson, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would say ditto. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't need to do that. I'm going to vote for Leslie because I don't know that Williamson is going to be a great replacement. But I would also encourage Leslie not to run in 2030, and I would encourage her and whoever she decides to include to start taking a look for a replacement. Chuck.
Yeah, the idea being that to have 4 years to talk about replacement to get people involved. Neither one of these people, I never see them at our EC meetings, and that has basically can be said by most of these people who are hanging around all of a sudden wanting to be elected. We never see them at local meetings or involved in local politics until all of a sudden they want to run everything.
I just want to say real quick on this subject. Are you done?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to cut you off,
No, go
but
ahead.
the institutional knowledge that Sean and Leslie bring is incredible.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, well, let's go ahead and finish up. We've got a Fifth Judicial Circuit judge, Nicole M. Morris and Lisa Yeager. You had some interesting things about that race off camera.
And there's not much out there about them, but Lisa Yeager has been in the legal business for a long time, based on her bio. And she has been a paralegal, worked for some law firms. I don't know her whole story in detail, but she took some years off, like 5 years off, because she was raising a family, things like that, which is great. I fully respect that. Um, so that is just kind of a brief overview of Miss Yeager, and then you have
Nicole Morris.
Miss Morris, yeah, Nicole Morris, who she's got about 10 years of experience, and she's more of an intense, more of a career driven person based on her bio. She worked as a prosecutor and as a public defender, according to her bio, and this qualifies her, which that makes sense to me, that if you have a sitting judge, it'd be good to have somebody that has some understanding of the perspective of both sides of the argument in court. And then Morris is endorsed by Peyton Grinnell, the Gladson, who's the district attorney, and some other legal professionals, which, that doesn't really impress me particularly. But I do believe in this particular situation, based on, my values, I think I'm going to support Nicole Morris in this race, Chuck.
There you go. Let's finish things up. I know we're just a couple of minutes over, but please, people, we'll be done in just a few minutes. The school board, District 1 school board, Pat Kelly, who I've seen at the REC meetings and other local meetings fairly regularly. I mean, obviously, I don't know Eric Swalback, but maybe you do. And does he show up, or is he just one of these people that all of a sudden feel like he can get elected, so he throws
Well,
his
Pat
hat
Kelly
in?
was the mayor of Mineola
Right.
for a
Yeah.
long time, I think 18 years. And him and Mark Johnson, the city manager, I've always held out that the city of Mineola is one of the best run cities in the country, as far as I'm concerned. I've always been a huge fan of Pat Kelly, so I'm certainly going to take the opportunity to support Pat Kelly for School Board District 1.
Yeah, and of course that's my point. He's involved. He's just because he's elected doesn't mean that he's not rubbing elbows with us regularly at these local meetings. So he has earned my vote. He also, in the things that I've heard him say, clearly he supports my moral fiber, if you will.
There you go. He's a good guy. He's a great conservative, fiscal conservative. He's done a great job. The school board must have fiscal conservatives running the school district, Chuck.
There you go. Well, Mike, we got through the ballot. So
Wow.
why don't you just wrap it up for us here?
Well, Chuck, I think the next thing for us to do is to actually fill in the bubbles and post these things publicly so people can see what we're doing. What do you think?
There we go. Well, I'll be doing that today. I'm going to be heading off to vote this afternoon, just shortly after the show. So thank you, Mike Levine, and thank you all for tuning into our twice weekly live stream. Please follow us on Facebook and X at Restore Our Rep 76. Check us out on YouTube at Restoring Our American Republic ROAR. Please like and share the program. And remember, if you are unwilling to govern yourself, you will be governed by tyrants. Until next time, God bless you. God bless President Donald J. Trump. And God bless America.